We can't expect to save the country if we're not willing to seize the leverage points procedurally that are still there for the taking.
The first priority of our organization is to regain a notion in this country, a consensus that we're not a secular country, that we are a Christian nation. That should be shared by everyone.
In the immigration debate, this trend has played out by eliminating, quite frankly, the space for Christians to question the societal benefits of mass immigration without assimilation, without having our morals questioned.
That is Russell Vought, Donald Trump's former director of the Office of Management and Budget. Unless you are an avid fan of Fox News or Christian talk radio, you probably haven't heard of him, but he's a key figure in shaping the priorities of a second Trump administration. Politico reporting that a think tank run by Vought, centering on renewing America, is, quote, developing plans to infuse Christian nationalist ideas in his administration should the former president return to power. One document drafted by CRA includes a list of top priorities for CRA in a second Trump term. Christian nationalism is one of the bullet points. Others include invoking the Insurrection Act on day one to quash protests and refusing to spend authorized congressional funds on unwanted projects. While the documents do not outline specific policies, Vought has advised organizations that have pushed policies that would attack LGBTQ rights, demonize single mothers, and eliminate birth control. It's worth noting that this entire political project to infuse Christian nationalism in the government is in the service of Donald Trump, who is set to stand trial next month over accusations that he paid hush money to an adult film star while married to his third wife. Let's bring in Politico investigative correspondent Heidi Presbala on her reporting. Basil is also back with us. Heidi, a truly incredible piece of reporting. Talk to us about what it is you uncovered about Vought's plans for America if Donald Trump were to be elected to a second term.
Yeah, Alicia, we know that there have been a number of Christian nationalist groups orbiting Trump for quite some time, but what this is confirmation that they would envision using state power to try and imbue our laws with that, to have it also work its way through the court system. It depends on the group that you're talking to, just how radical and how on the spectrum those policies would be, but we focus primarily on Russ Vought because we know he's working on this framework, Alicia, and we know that he has close access to President Trump, former President Trump, and that Trump has already echoed some of these ideas from Russ Vought. What we uncovered was that Russ Vought gets a lot of his inspiration from a gentleman named William Wolfe. Now, William Wolfe has wrote about much more radical ideas. While Russ Vought focuses on immigration, he says, you know, Jesus wasn't an open borders person, and that he supports, for instance, family separation at the border. William Wolfe has gone much further. Now, he's deleted a number of these tweets now, Alicia, but he has talked about, for instance, birth control, about ending no-fault divorce, much more extreme ideas. And a lot of these ideas now are coursing through these groups that don't have as much access to Trump, but Russ Vought does have this access. And if you look at some of the other individuals now that former President Trump is talking about bringing into his administration, for instance, like Michael Flynn, this is not at all far-fetched. This is not at all fringe. This is at the center of power here in a potential second Trump presidency. Right now, Michael Flynn is going around the country on this Awaken America tour, talking about how we need to bring God into the government. There are even some individuals who, again, are more on the activism side of this. That's not Russ Vought, but who believe that Trump himself was put here by God in order to put Christianity back at the center of American life. Alicia?
Basil, this reporting is absolutely wild. A top contender to be chief of staff is, you guessed it, Vought, right? I mean, you're talking about instilling someone at the inner sanctum who has these ideas.
Well, my question would be, are you scared yet? To anyone doubting how important this election is or whether or not your choices in this election are very clear, I would say, are you scared yet? Because if you ever want to know how we get towards fascism, we are watching it unfold as we speak. Now, to be clear, there have been times in American history where this question, as he brought up in that segment you showed, the word assimilation, when it comes up. It's come up many times in our history. We've seen governments use that in terms of bilingual education. We've seen governments try to find ways to infuse schools with certain types of education. We're seeing that in Florida. This movement towards this singular narrative of America, when it was clearly not supposed to be founded upon that. There have been groups have taken great pains to make it the melting pot that we say we are, but you can see how the levers of political and bureaucratic power are going to be used to create this singular narrative. It was disturbing when Trump conflated economic nationalism and ethnic nationalism. Now we're adding Christian nationalism to this soup, and it is extraordinarily dangerous. And I have to say, if you, after hearing this and reading this piece, if you're not scared and you don't really understand how important it is to get elected for this election, for you to go out and vote, I don't know what would change your mind.
Well, I have to say, it's a perversion of the Christianity I grew up with, and it's a perversion of democracy. And that's where I want to make sure, Heidi, that we keep our focus, because in your piece, you note that Vote is advising Project 2025. The project's mandate for leadership states that, quote, freedom is defined by God, not man. What does that mean then, Heidi, for their views on democracy?
Alicia, so important that you brought that up, because a lot of this hinges on something that Christians would all be familiar with, which is called natural law. Natural law in the past, particularly by Jesuit Catholics, was used on social justice issues. Martin Luther King invoked natural law to talk about the ills of segregation. It is the idea that there are these inherent rights that humans have, and it's been used in social justice campaigns. But more recently, Orthodox religious individuals have used it on single issues. And it's everything from abortion to same-sex marriage to contraception, which, by the way, I think a lot of Americans would be surprised to know how much this is just becoming part of the ethos and into the universe on the far right. And in Trump's circle is the contraception issue. But also like these issues of no-fault divorce. Now, these are issues, of course, that the Orthodox churches have stood for a long time, but it's now becoming much more mainstream in the Republican Party. If you look at, for instance, Alicia, Turning Point USA, which is a very influential group in Trump world, they had a conference targeting young women leaders, where they talked not only about ending abortion, but telling them to get rid of their hormonal birth control, and they were even disparaging daycare. Now, at the heart of a lot of it, I think, is a backlash to the sexual revolution. And they believe that the hormonal birth control was at the center of that in terms of empowering women to have opportunities outside of the home, essentially.
And you're already seeing them actually make progress. We were talking earlier this week about that ruling around IVF and the ways in which that could have big implications for birth control across this country. Heidi Presbula, thank you so much for bringing us your reporting. Basil Smykel, as always, thank you so much.